Hello and welcome, I'm KraNis, and if you're watching this in the future, then I'll seem like some sort of a prophet or like a complete moron. In either case, we're going to analyze what is currently known about Phrolova before her release. Let's get into it. Firstly, I want to start with the very obvious Jungian connections. You see, fortes are based on the unconscious mind. Phrolova is defined in part by despair, detachment, nostalgia, and perhaps a form of longing. She is on the threshold, someone who is almost something but never truly is something. Much like how she stands on the threshold of life and death, that transition, that gateway from life to the beyond. Based on what I've read here in her reports, it seems as if she has this sense of despair and negative aura around her. Upon her death, when she went to the beyond and saw Hecate, she said that Hecate is her and that she is Hecate. This is true. Hecate is, in essence, her shadow. However, she did not properly integrate with it. She failed at it and is now, essentially, its slave, a victim of her own weakness. You might think that by taking Hecate's hand and that saying they are the same, she's accepting her shadow, but this is not true. This is essentially the acknowledgement part of integration. However, integration still has a sense of separation, as in, this is a part of me, not this is me. When you say this is me, you are abandoning the other parts of yourself in favor of the shadow. Her failure might have something to do with her philosophy, mimicking nihilism. She freely tortures and kills people in one of her released trailers, which, by the way, the number 936 has a lot of meanings, including biblical and with sound. They should be on screen now. However, her philosophy is essentially that it doesn't matter if she kills people or not. Everyone is going to die in the end. She is at the transition of life and death, just like Hecate. She has access to a place that is similar to the underworld, trapping people in it and turning them into tacit discords. Phrolova isn't necessarily a monster, as she is, simply put, a failure. Falling victim to your shadow can amplify negative traits about you, whereas integration tempers them. This is not to say she is a failure as a human, though she is no longer human, but a failure at integrating her shadow specifically. However, it is also what keeps her alive. She is thousands of chaotic frequencies, like tacit discords are, and is, in essence, an opposite of Rover. However, there is also the Greek goddess known as Hecate, which her name obviously draws inspiration from. The Roman name is Triwia. Hecate is a deity with three faces, not inherently evil or gruesome, but one of those faces may be perceived as such by virtue that people generally do not like dying. However, one of her attributes is the moon, and we also have Juno, who is an attribute of that as well. Perhaps this is a hint at some future conflict involving the Phrolova and Juno, and by extension, Augusta. Perhaps 2.5 is more of a prelude to 2.6, and isn't the finale of 2.4. Hecate is a goddess of things between mortal and divine, life and death, between heaven and hell, with equal power in both realms, hence the failure of integrating her shadow properly. She can regenerate from almost nothing. Her regenerative abilities are practically nothing compared to the Shorekeeper, but in a world where many resonators don't appear to regenerate much differently than humans do, it is a massive boon and revelation. Organ failure, loss of limb, she'll regenerate, but it does have limits based on what we have read here. Perhaps the only way to destroy her is to kill her both in Solaris and in the beyond. In other words, killing both Phrolova and Hecate. Now then, we've already seen her kit and powers, but their names are quite beautiful. All lead to different forms of music, including a final part known as a cadenza. I mostly wanted to focus on what the released reports and showcases tell us. Naturally, they are less restricted about what they can and cannot do, whereas the game, by default, is more mechanical by nature. That said, you can actually spot every ability Rover uses when they fight in cutscenes. Their attention to detail is quite exceptional. And up next, we of course have the predictions. This is the part where I attempt to predict certain story beats or outcomes. Firstly, I don't think Rover is the founder of the Phrolova, nor do I think Rover ever joined them. I do, however, think that Rover may have assisted them at some point in the past, but not outright joining them. I believe that Phrolova is going to elicit some sort of sympathy from Rover, and the Phraxidus are going to more or less use Rover to help fix something. You see, Fenrico ends up with Leviathan's shard. I think there is a part of Leviathan within Fenrico as well, and the two will converge, thus turning the Primus into another Mia, or Fleur de Lis, a vessel. We see that there are crowns that are used to control people over the Phraxidus members' heads. Phrolova may have known Rover in the past, based on her reports, but doesn't seem to like Rover. I get the impression she despises the hope that Rover gives people, because she knows it will be betrayed in the end, that everyone will die, and despair will consume them. However, I also believe she loves the random notes to the symphony Rover adds for her. Perhaps in her mind she is wondering if it is okay to hope. However, because of all the people she has killed in the past, the suffering she's caused, I doubt she'll ever join Rover. Logic and reason are slaves to emotion and belief. All of that emotional weight and attachment may cause her to break and fall. It may result in Hecate completely controlling Phrolova. Perhaps this is something that actually happens often and results in Phrolova dying, and then being again reborn. Speaking of Phrolova dying, I think they can safely kill her because, well, she'll just come back after maybe an hour or so, depending on how severe things are. Phrolova and Rover are likely to remain enemies. They fundamentally disagree on core ideological principles. It would not make any sense for either to join each other. However, there is a possibility. If Rover helps her integrate Hecate properly, essentially saving her, then it might be possible Phrolova would join the Black Shores, or act as a double agent. I need to give both Phrolova lovers and haters some hope to work with. Let us as well remember that up next is Juno, I believe, and after her should be Augusta, based on the trailer we had some time ago. This, to me, implies that there will be greater conflict that requires the intervention of Juno and Augusta. 2.5 ends near the end of August, meaning 2.6 should end perhaps in October. I don't think we'll get another filler patch, but if I had to guess, it'll be 2.7 with Lilyland. Lilyland may be similar to the Riccioli Islands. This is assuming that in January we'll be getting the 3.x series, of course. Lilyland very well could have its very own series of arcs and tribulations unworthy of a single filler patch. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I could dive into lore or more information and even overanalyze to my heart's content, but there is a time limit, and all of this research I've been doing for my Carl Jung video and my next couple has been draining my mind. That said, I do love it and hope I was able to provide all of you something to think about. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to Takoyaki Lover, Wolfmaster256, Icy Sincere 13, and Frosty Frog for making these videos possible.